37 touches down at Cape Canaveral as he becomes the first chief executive to visit this nation's missile test center. His jet transport puts him less than 2 hours flying time from Washington to the Cape. This is to be a quick once-over lightly for the Commander-in-Chief. His fast-moving motorcade arrives first at the launching complex of the giant ICBM Titan. The President receives a briefing at each pad by the men who work with the missiles. Later in this news review, you'll see a Titan launched for the first time over an ICBM range. The President's party moves swiftly from pad to pad. This is the 4 complex, site of many successful launches of the now operational 4 IRBM. Last of the Air Force's big 3 to get presidential perusal is the Atlas Icbm. Among those with the President are the Deputy Defense Secretary, the Air Force Secretary, and Major General Yates, Missile Test Center Commander. And, of course, a large contingent of journalists. The tour includes stops at the Polaris and Pershing pads as the President winds up a 3¼ hour fast-moving review of America's missile might. The President left Washington at 8:30 this morning. He'll be back in the Capitol just in time for the evening traffic jams. Homestead Air Force Base. Here in this ancient hangar, some well-known airmen initiated an outstanding contribution to air power. A crowd of Air Materiel Command workers witnessed dedication ceremonies of a new jet engine overhaul plant just a short distance from where the first aerial refueling tests were planned. With Pennsylvania's Governor Lawrence, are retired generals Ira Aker, Tui Spatz, and Pete Quesada, crew members on that historic endurance flight back in 1929. Later, and these pioneers reflect on the humble beginning of an essential technique of today's United States air power. Capping a triumphant tour of the Far East, the Thunderbirds perform for an eager audience in Tainan and Taipei. It's a big event for this Free China Island stronghold. In the capital, Taipei, the Congress declared a holiday to join 200,000 other exuberant spectators in greeting the Air Force's official aerial demonstration team. General Chen, Commander-in-Chief of the Chinese Air Force, presents each Thunderbird with the wings of the Chinese Air Force. Japan, Korea, the Philippines, and Formosa. A triumphant tour for the well-traveled Thunderbirds. This is a fast way to ride to work on the Daisy track at the Aeromedical Field Laboratory, Holloman Air Force Base. Here, being prepared for a test ride on the track, is Dr. Rufus Hesberg, chief of the laboratory, which explores biodynamic forces within the limits of human tolerance. The track, 120 feet long, can produce gravity forces from 10 to 200 times normal. The seat is propelled by standard ejection charges with an onset rate of 5,000 Gs per second. Lieutenant Colonel Hesberg and his group of aeromedical experts direct their research toward developing emergency escape systems for high-performance aircraft and toward gaining knowledge to support man's challenge of space. Accelerometers and other instruments to measure body reaction to high G-forces are attached to Dr. Hesberg. The mouthpiece is a precaution to avoid an unnecessary trip to the dentist. This run is scheduled to be at the 20 G level. A record run of 83 Gs was once absorbed by the test director, Captain E.L. Beating. Everything okay. As they say, it's not the fall that hurts, it's the sudden stop. Air Force aeromedical experts are developing ways to ease the jolt. Wonder what it's like to put a jet aircraft through its paces? Our camera gives you a pilot's eye view of some spectacular spins. Actually, these scenes were photographed as part of a training film used to instruct pilots in the proper techniques to employ in recovering the T-37 basic trainer from various types of spins. Seeing what the pilot sees, the trainee gains a margin of confidence in the recovery techniques, such as this power-off stall and spin. The corrective action and the recovery. Tell you, this is an exciting maneuver, an inverted spin. First, the clouds are overhead. Then the earth. A splendid tool for training, and an instrument for accurately recording the achievements of the United States Air Force. This dumbo-looking airplane is the X-18, a vehicle being used as a research tool to establish standards for a dependable vertical and short takeoff and landing aircraft for use by all services. 16-foot counter-rotating props and Allison turboprop engines supply the power. To attain vertical flight, the 48-foot wing rotates to the up position, and the X-18 virtually becomes a helicopter. This unusual craft is a composite of off-the-shelf items. That is, there's very little new about it. Fuselage from an old C-122, standard engines, and props. The first conversion from conventional to helicopter performance will be attempted at 15,000-foot altitude later in the test program. Right now, engineers are interested only in finding out if the plane will fly at all. Note that a fuselage-mounted jet engine is exhausted at the tail to offer empennage stabilization once the conversion to vertical performance is made. In high-speed taxi runs, the X-18 has done well. Now the Hiller Aircraft Company test pilot attempts a takeoff from the Air Force Flight Test Center. The X-18, a study to provide design data for VTOL and STOL aircraft. In the early morning hours of February 24th, missile men of the Martin Company and airman trainees prepare the Titan Icbm for a significant test launch. Miles of wiring are checked to ensure that the telemetry signals sent back during its flight will paint an accurate picture of what's happening to the bird during its power boost and during its ballistic trajectory down the Atlantic missile range. The longest flight for the Titan so far has been a 2,000-mile limited range test. On through the night, the technicians work. And shortly after daybreak, the gantry comes down, leaving the Titan poised for the blastoff of its 300,000-pound thrust first stage engine. It's a perfect launch. The 98-foot, 110-ton missile flies 5,000 miles downrange. Its ablation, or melt-away nose cone, was retrieved from the South Atlantic waters shortly after impact. This is the first of the G-Series Titans to be launched over a long range to test major subsystems of the missile. The Titan moves rapidly toward an operational capability and will add significantly to the aerospace power of the United States Air Force.